Twitter does not vote.
Sure, Twitter doesn't vote, but I also don't think we need to be afraid of expressing our opinions on Twitter. I had a problem.
No, we should. Exactly. That's what he's standing up for. We shouldn't be afraid. I am afraid. I got off Twitter because everything I wanted to say on Twitter, I couldn't say on Twitter.
Why?
Because it would just be it's such a minefield to get canceled. You know that 99%, I'm sure you know this, 99% of the people who worked at Twitter, half of them don't now, vote Democratic. Now, even if you're a Democrat, you shouldn't like that. That's not healthy for any company.
Bill Maher has never shied away from controversy, but in a recent episode of Real Time, he turned the spotlight not on his usual targets, but on his own panel. In a bold, no-holds-barred discussion, Maher pushed back hard against what he views as the growing extremism of modern woke ideology, challenging his guests on some of their most uncompromising views. The conversation quickly moved into sensitive territory, tackling issues such as cancel culture and the increasing threats to free speech. Maher didn't hesitate to point out how these cultural trends, though often presented as progressive, can actually suppress open debate, discourage differing opinions, and contribute to division rather than understanding. At the heart of the exchange was a deep dive into identity politics and its growing influence over the political left. Maher raised tough questions about whether the constant emphasis on race, gender, and other identity categories is alienating everyday Americans and weakening broader progressive movements. He argued that when every conversation is viewed through the lens of grievance or group identity, it becomes harder to find common ground or promote unity. His guests, many of whom were ready to defend these ideas, found themselves challenged as Maher explored the unintended consequences of prioritizing rigid ideology over practical solutions, especially when it comes to winning elections and developing policies that truly connect with voters. In a media climate filled with echo chambers and emotional reactions, Maher's willingness to question his own side and demand critical thinking stood out as a moment of rare honesty. Whether you agree with his take or not, the debate revealed some of the deepest cultural and political tensions of our time, and it's a conversation well worth watching.
Picture your dog. He wants to have it like where you do your banking and like some of these other social apps.
And if he gets rid of the bots, that'll help.
And he's doing that, yes. Okay, Robert, Democratic strategist James Carville said Democrats would be better off looking harder at Mississippi than Florida, following the overwhelming GOP success in the state. I don't know whether that's sarcastic or I don't.
Well, the question
is Florida now out of reach for Democrats in 2024? Is he serious about Mississippi? It's more in reach than...
It's a challenge for the Democrats, I think, in the coming years, having spent a lot of time in Georgia, a lot of time in Mississippi, in Alabama. How are they going to win back the South? In some respects, the Clyburn argument that voting rights and redistricting needs to be put front and center has helped the Democrats make gains. I mean, to think that there are 2 Democratic senators from Georgia right now shows the Democrats have made some inroads. But when you go to Mississippi, when you go to Alabama, and you say, I'm a reporter, a lot of people just turn away. It's still Trump country there. And the Democrats have struggled with the working class. And that's why the Bernie Sanders campaign...
Let's talk about where the Democratic Party is heading, because honestly, it's at a real crossroads right now. More and more key voter groups, especially working class communities in the South, are moving away from the party, and a big reason for this is the heavy focus on identity politics. Political strategist James Carville has been sounding the alarm for years, saying that if Democrats want to win back places like Mississippi, Alabama, or even solidify their wins in Georgia, they need to get back to basics. That means shifting the focus away from niche cultural debates and zeroing in on the economic issues, the everyday concerns that really impact people's lives. Sure, Georgia has seen some recent Democratic victories, but the party hasn't really capitalized on that momentum. By allowing cultural narratives to dominate the conversation, they're leaving the door wide open for Republicans who are stepping in with simple, clear messaging that resonates with middle America. If Democrats can't bridge that gap, they'll keep losing ground in regions that are crucial to building a national majority. And honestly, this isn't just a Southern issue, it's part of a larger cultural and political reckoning happening across the country. Figures like Bill Maher are now calling out the excesses of woke culture, questioning whether all this ideological rigidity is doing more harm than good. Public sentiment is definitely shifting, and more people are pushing back, saying enough is enough. What people really want is open dialogue, not constant policing of speech or purity tests. Platforms like Twitter are right in the middle of all this, especially with Elon Musk now at the helm. There's a growing tension about how to create a space where free speech can thrive without spiraling into chaos. Musk's approach is certainly controversial, but it highlights how cultural divides are being amplified online and how much influence social media now has over today's political landscape.
You want to be running the day-to-day of Twitter. Like, do you really want to make a decision on whether Bill Maher or O'Connor's tweet should stay or not. I couldn't think of a worse possible job. Just appoint some board independently to make that decision.
Well, I
It's like
think he's going to. I think that's what he's doing.
Yeah, well-
You know, look, I think he had a terrible week, and I'm a big fan of his. But retweeting the gay Pelosi story
Yeah.
was stupid, and then advising people to vote Republican because we need divided government at a time when the Republicans were standing for ending democracy was stupid. But he's a genius. Sometimes geniuses are stupid. And I'm still on his team. I think it's great. I think it'd be so good for the Democrats to unshackle themselves from woke Twitter. This election just proved they do best when they have, you know, the moderate guy who's not beholden to woke Twitter. Twitter does not vote.
Sure, Twitter doesn't vote, but I also don't think we need to be afraid of expressing our opinions on Twitter. I had a problem.
No, we should. Exactly. That's what he's standing up for. We shouldn't be afraid. I am afraid. I got off Twitter because everything I wanted to say on Twitter, I couldn't say on Twitter.
Why?
Because it would just be it's such a minefield to get canceled. You know that 99%, I'm sure you know this, 99% of the people who worked at Twitter, half of them don't now, vote Democratic. Now, even if you're a Democrat, you shouldn't like that.
Let's talk about Bill Maher because he just lit up his own panel on Real Time, and honestly, it was kind of epic. Maher is no stranger to controversy, but this time he aimed at something much closer to home. The so-called woke ideology creeping through the left. And let's be honest, he did not hold back. Maher called out the extreme progressive takes on identity politics and censorship, the stuff you hear all the time on social media, where it feels like everyone's walking on eggshells, terrified of saying the wrong thing. At this point, it's driving moderates away and shrinking the political tent instead of growing it. You could feel Maher's frustration. He's watching this endless cycle where the loudest voices demand ideological purity, but meanwhile, the average voter, the one who actually decides elections, is tuning out. Maher is saying, hey, maybe let's focus on actually winning people over instead of just shoving each other down in an echo chamber. And of course, no conversation about free speech these days is complete without mentioning Twitter. Maher and his panel dove into Elon Musk's takeover and how it's flipping the script on the platform. Remember when Twitter felt like a minefield? Say the wrong thing and boom, you're canceled. Maher argues that Twitter was previously run by folks who leaned left and that ideological bias seeped into how the platform was moderated. Now, with Musk shaking things up, it's messier, sure,